Have you ever wondered why the financial system feels like a rigged game where only a few hold all the cards while everyone else struggles just to get by? There is a profound, ancient secret about money that the largest banks in the world spend millions of dollars every single year to keep hidden from you. They want you to believe that wealth is simply a matter of endless grinding, complex mathematics, and ruthless competition. But the truth is something far more beautiful and deeply spiritual. Wealth is not a mathematical equation, it is a spiritual energy. For thousands of years, Jewish wisdom has understood that money is not dirty, corrupt, or evil. It is a divine tool meant to flow into your life and out into the world, creating peace, stability, and blessings for your family and your community. I am Rabbi David, and I want to welcome you to a space where faith and abundance meet. People often ask me why a man of God is so focused on the topic of money. My answer is simple. Poverty does not serve the Creator. When good people struggle to pay their bills, their light is dimmed by anxiety and survival. But when good people have resources, they can change the world. The financial institutions of today operate on a mindset of scarcity, trying to convince you that there is never enough to go around. They build walls around the knowledge of how to attract, grow, and keep wealth because a dependent society is a profitable one. But the ancient texts teach us a completely different reality, a reality based on infinite abundance. Today, we are going to break down those walls together. I am going to share with you the exact spiritual principles and practical actions that have empowered the Jewish people to rebuild and prosper generation after generation, no matter what circumstances they faced. This is not about getting rich quick or serving greed. This is about realigning your soul with the natural flow of prosperity that the Almighty intended for you from the very beginning. When you understand the spiritual laws of money, you stop chasing it and you start attracting it. You become a vessel for blessing, capable of holding and multiplying the wealth that comes your way. If you are tired of feeling disconnected from the abundance you know you deserve, you are in the right place. We are going to explore how to shift your mindset from fear to faith and how to take practical steps that honor both your earthly needs and your highest spiritual calling. The secret the banks hide is that true wealth begins in the soul, and once you unlock that spiritual foundation, no earthly system can hold you back. When we look at the blessings in our lives, especially our financial and material resources, we have to ask ourselves a fundamental question about who really owns all of this. Society tells us that what we earn belongs entirely to us, to do with exactly as we please. But our tradition teaches something far more beautiful and profound. Wealth is a divine trust. We are not the ultimate owners of our money, our homes, or our possessions. We are stewards. The Creator has entrusted these resources into our hands, making us managers of His estate. He gives us wealth to see what we will do with it, how we will manage it, and whether we will use it to bring light into the world. When you shift your mindset from ownership to stewardship, the heavy burden of holding on to everything simply melts away. You realize that God has made you a channel for His goodness. Look at our father Abraham. Abraham was a man of immense wealth. The scriptures tell us he had flocks, herds, silver, and gold. But Abraham never let his wealth own him. He understood the purpose of his prosperity. His tent was famous for being open on all four sides. Why all four sides? Because he wanted to be ready to welcome travelers from any direction, at any time. His wealth was not a fortress to keep people out. It was a magnet to draw people in. He used his food, his drink, and his shelter to comfort the weary, and through that profound generosity, he introduced them to the Creator. Abraham showed us that material wealth is not a barrier to spiritual elevation. When used correctly, it is the very vehicle for it. This brings us to a concept that is often profoundly misunderstood. In English, we use the word charity. Charity comes from a Latin word which means love or affection. It implies that giving is a matter of the heart, a nice thing to do when you feel moved by pity or compassion. But in Hebrew, the word we use is tzedakah. Tzedakah does not mean charity. It comes from the root word tzedek, which means justice and righteousness. This is a massive difference. When you give tzedakah, you are not doing someone a favor because you happen to feel generous today. You are doing what is right. You are doing what is just. You are returning a portion of the Creator's wealth to the places He wants it to go. You are fixing a broken world and restoring balance. When you give tzedakah, you are acting as a partner with the divine. God could have easily provided for the poor person directly. He could have dropped manna from heaven right onto their doorstep. But He chose to put that provision in your pocket instead. He did this to give you the merit of doing a righteous act. The poor person needs your money, but you need the act of giving even more. It elevates your soul. It refines your character. It breaks the natural human inclination toward selfishness and greed. Giving is the ultimate act of freedom, proving that you are the master of your money, and your money is not the master of you. And here is the most beautiful spiritual secret about giving. We often think of our finances like a pie. If I give a slice away, I have less pie for myself. But the spiritual economy works on an entirely different set of rules. When you give, you do not diminish your wealth. You actually create a vacuum. In the physical world, nature abhors a vacuum, and the same is true in the spiritual realm. When you empty your hands to help someone else, you create an empty space in your life. And the Creator, who is the source of all abundance, rushes in to fill that space with even more blessing. Think of a body of water. If water flows into a pond but has no way to flow out, the water becomes stagnant. It becomes lifeless. But a river is completely different. A river is vibrant and full of life precisely because the water is constantly flowing in and constantly flowing out. Your life is meant to be a river, not a stagnant pond. When you allow the blessings to flow through you to others, you remain fresh, vibrant, and connected to the source. You become a trusted conduit. And when the Creator sees that you are a reliable channel for His blessings, that you do not block the flow, He will ensure that the river of abundance never runs dry in your life. When we think about how to manage the blessings we have been given, we often look to modern financial advisors. But the blueprint for financial peace was laid out for us thousands of years ago in the Talmud. In Tractate Bava Metzia, our sages give us a brilliant and incredibly practical piece of advice. They tell us that a person should always divide their money into 3 parts. 1/3 should be invested in land, 1/3 in business, and 1/3 kept in hand as liquid assets. Think about how profound and perfectly balanced this is. This is not just ancient history. This is the original strategy for diversification designed to protect us from the unpredictable nature of the world. Let us look closer at this threefold formula. The first third goes into land or real estate. Land represents stability. It is a foundation. It is something solid that you can stand on, something that grounds you and provides lasting security for your family. The second third goes into business or merchandise. This is your engine for growth. This is where you put your creativity, your daily effort, and the talents God has given you to work in the marketplace. It carries more risk than land, but it also brings the potential for greater reward and allows you to contribute to the economy and your community. The final third is kept in hand, meaning cash or liquid assets. Why? Because life happens. Unexpected emergencies arise, or perhaps a sudden golden opportunity appears. If all your wealth is tied up in land and business, you are paralyzed when you need to act quickly. Keeping a third liquid gives you the agility and the peace of mind to navigate the surprises of life without panic. But there is another side to this financial peace, and it is something we must speak about with absolute clarity. To truly build a life of stability, we have to recognize the deep spiritual danger of debt. We live in a culture that normalizes owing money, a culture that constantly encourages us to buy what we cannot afford today and worry about the payments tomorrow. The Torah takes a very different view. King Solomon warns us in Proverbs that the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is a slave to the lender. When you are drowning in consumer debt, you are not truly free. Debt creates a heavy cloud of anxiety that follows you everywhere. It drains your energy, it creates tension in your marriage, and it distracts you from your spiritual purpose. How can you focus on prayer, on your family, or on helping others when your mind is consumed by how you will make your next minimum payment? The Torah teaches us that financial freedom is not about accumulating luxury. It is about removing the chains of obligation to anyone other than our Creator. Now, the Torah does command us to lend money to those in need. Lending to someone who has fallen on hard times is considered one of the highest forms of charity because it helps them get back on their feet with dignity. But there is a massive difference between taking out a loan because you are facing a survival crisis and taking on debt to fund a lifestyle you cannot sustain. God wants you to be free. He brought us out of Egypt so we would never be slaves to any pharaoh, and that includes the pharaoh of credit card debt and crippling financial obligations. When you follow the wisdom of the Talmud by diversifying your resources, and when you protect your peace by aggressively. When we look into the wisdom of our sages, we see that the Torah does not ignore our material reality. In fact, it gives us a blueprint for it. The Talmud in Tractate Bava Metzia offers a brilliant, timeless strategy for managing whatever wealth God entrusts to us. The sages teach that a person should always divide their money into 3 parts. 1/3 should be invested in land, 1/3 should be invested in merchandise or business, and 1/3 should be kept in hand as liquid assets. Think about how profound this is. Thousands of years before modern financial advisors started talking about diversified portfolios, the Talmud gave us the ultimate formula for financial stability and peace of mind. Let us look closer at these 3 parts. The first third goes into land. Land represents security. It is solid, it is enduring, and it connects us to the physical world in a grounded way. Today, we might call this real estate or long-term secure investments. It is the foundation that protects you against the storms of life. The second third goes into merchandise. This is your business, your active investments, the ventures that generate ongoing income and growth. This requires your energy, your creativity, and your daily effort. It is how you participate in the active building of the world. Finally, the sages say the last third must be kept in your hand. This is cash. This is liquidity. The reason we keep it in our hand is because life is unpredictable. Opportunities arise suddenly, and emergencies strike without warning. If all your wealth is locked away in fields and goods, you cannot respond to the immediate needs of your family or your community. Having cash on hand gives you the agility to navigate the unexpected with grace. This structure of thirds is not just about making more money. It is about creating a stable foundation so that you can live a life of spiritual purpose without the crushing weight of anxiety. And this brings us to one of the most critical teachings in our tradition regarding money, which is the spiritual danger of debt. King Solomon warns us in Proverbs that the borrower is a slave to the lender. This is not just a poetic metaphor, it is a spiritual reality. When you are drowning in debt, your mind is no longer your own. Your time is no longer your own. Every waking moment is consumed by the pressure of what you owe to others. Debt creates a heavy cloud over the soul. It robs you of your joy, your peace, and your ability to be fully present with your family and with your Creator. When you stand to pray, instead of speaking to God with an open heart, your mind is racing with calculations, worries, and fears about creditors. The Torah wants you to be a free person. We were taken out of Egypt to be servants of God alone. We were not freed to become servants to credit card companies, servants to banks, or servants to the people we borrowed from to fund a lifestyle we could not afford. Financial freedom is deeply connected to spiritual freedom. When you live within your means, even if those means are modest, you retain your dignity and your independence. The Torah has a very specific perspective on the relationship between borrowing and lending. Lending money to someone in need is considered one of the highest forms of charity. It is a beautiful mitzvah. When you lend to your brother or sister without interest, you are helping them stand on their own 2 feet. You are partnering with God to sustain another human being. But while lending is a great virtue, borrowing is something we are taught to avoid unless absolutely necessary. We pray every day in the grace after meals, asking God not to make us dependent on the gifts of flesh and blood, nor upon their loans, but only upon His full, open, holy, and generous hand. We ask for this because depending on human loans diminishes our spiritual posture. It places a human being between us and our Heavenly Father as our provider. By following the Talmudic principle of diversification, by living carefully, and by avoiding unnecessary debt, we are doing much more than practicing good economics. We are protecting our souls. We are ensuring that our minds remain clear to study Torah, our hearts remain open to love our families, and our hands remain free to give charity rather than paying off debts. True wealth is the peace of mind that allows you to serve God with absolute joy and total freedom. We often ask ourselves how much we are supposed to do and how much we are supposed to leave in the hands of the Almighty. This brings us to a beautiful and essential balance in our tradition, the balance between bitachon, which is our absolute trust in God, and hishtadlut, which is our human effort. You see, God provides, but He asks us to create the vessel to receive His blessing. If you want to catch rain, you cannot just stand in the field looking up at the sky. You have to build a barrel. That is hishtadlut. You go to work, you learn a trade, you make investments. But bitachon is knowing with absolute certainty that the rain comes only from heaven, not from the barrel you built. The struggle for so many of us is that we start to believe the barrel makes the rain. We think our brilliance, our endless hours at the office, our constant worrying is what brings us wealth. We work day and night, sacrificing our health, our families, and our peace of mind, thinking that more effort automatically equals more money. But when we do this, we cross the line from healthy effort into anxiety. We lose our bitachon. True trust in God means doing your honest day of work, closing your laptop and going home to your family, knowing that whatever is meant for you will find you. You do your part, and you let God do His. Part of doing your part wisely, your hishtadlut, involves understanding how the world of finance actually works. There is a hidden reality about wealth creation that the banks and financial institutions do not want you to fully grasp. It is the power of compound interest and consistent, disciplined saving. This is not a secret formula or a complex algorithm. It is a spiritual principle of patience and consistent action applied to your finances. The Torah teaches us about the power of small, consistent actions. The building of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, was done through countless small contributions from the entire community. Each person brought what they could, and together it created something magnificent. Compound interest works in a similar way. Small, consistent savings, invested wisely, grow exponentially over time. It is the miracle of the mustard seed, which is the smallest of all seeds, yet grows into the largest of garden plants. The banks profit immensely from your lack of understanding of this principle. They want you to keep your money in low-interest accounts while they leverage it for massive returns. They want you to live paycheck to paycheck, always needing their loans, always paying their fees. But when you understand and apply the principle of compound interest, you turn the tables. You become the one whose money is working for you, silently and consistently, building wealth while you sleep. This requires discipline, yes, but it also requires bitachon. It requires trusting that your consistent effort, combined with the natural laws of growth that the Creator embedded in the universe, will yield abundant fruit. It is about planting seeds today, knowing that the harvest will come in its season. It is about delaying instant gratification for a greater, more lasting reward. This is not just financial advice. It is a spiritual practice. It teaches patience, foresight, and trust in the divine order. It transforms you from a consumer into a creator, from a borrower into a lender, from a slave to money into its master. When you align your financial practices with these ancient truths, you are not just building a bank account. You are building character. You are building a legacy. You are building a life of true freedom and spiritual abundance. Shalom.